We're back with John Kasich, the Republican governor of Ohio. Governor, I want to start with the Affordable Care Act. You've worked with portions of it, particularly the Medicaid portion. Now that the Supreme Court has ruled, is this it? Is it over? Should Republicans just accept it?
No, I don't think so, John. I mean, the problem with Obamacare is it drives up insurance costs. It is messed with our insurance bans out here. That doesn't make any sense, and it's a top-down and doesn't control costs. So there are alternatives to Obamacare. We're driving one here in Ohio called Quality Health Care, where we incentivize both the early physicians with the insurance companies and the providers to practice quality medicine so that you don't have to have 10 tests when you only need 2. With incentives built in the system to keep us healthy and also control the cost of health care. In regard to Medicaid, I think there we ought to be block granting money back to the states so states can be empowered to treat the poor. And we're going to ask for some waivers in that program. But what was most important there is I brought Ohio money back to treat the mentally ill, the drug addicted, and to help the working poor. So they're not in the emergency rooms, and so our mentally ill and drug addicted are not in prison. That's not only a question of arithmetic, but it's also a question of morality, and so that's working pretty well. By the way, we will have a balanced budget. We're going to have a structural balance. We have a $2 billion in our surplus, and we've cut taxes by $5 billion, the most in the country, with strong credit. We've been managing things appropriately, and we've grown jobs by 360,000 here in Ohio, and there's a lot of lessons for people to learn about that nationally.
Lessons nationally. You mentioned the arithmetic. I want to go back to your point about the moral part. You talked when you got a little pushback from conservatives about that Medicaid money that you took. You said when you go to meet St. Peter at the pearly gates, your quote is, he's probably not going to ask you much about what you did about keeping government small, but he's going to ask you about what you did for the poor. That didn't strike everyone in the conservative ranks as a kind thing to say.
I get it, John. Look, first of all, you have to have economic growth because that's the most important thing for our country, for the world for that matter, because it takes people out of poverty and gives them an opportunity to live their God-given purpose. But I have to tell you, as a big fan of that handbook that the Lord's handed us, the Old and New Testament, there's a lot in there, John, about our need to take care of the widowed, the poor, the disadvantaged, and I feel very good about it. And at the end of the day, all these people are giving a lift and an opportunity. That's one thing we need in a country, John, is, we talk about a lot of issues that divide us, but there are many things that should unite us, and that's what America needs. We need to be united. There was divisions between rich and poor and black and white, and we can fix these things if everybody feels they have an opportunity to rise, and that's kind of my philosophy.
You mentioned in another context, you said the Republican Party needs more empathy. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I think the whole country needs more empathy. I think it's been a disappearing value, John. I mean, if you're developmentally disabled, we want you to be mainstreamed as much as possible. If you're mentally ill, we want you to get your medication so you can stand and lead a good life. The same is true with rehabbing prisoners. We've been able to help people who are drug addicted to come out of prison and have only a 10% recidivism rate. I mean, that's what unifies the country, John. And what people are losing here is a little bit of an erosion of the spirit. Does the American dream work? Do I have an opportunity to become something special? And I think that if we in fact can convince people that everyone's included, that everybody has an opportunity to rise based on a growing economy, America is stronger and not divided.
I want to ask you about the ruling from the Supreme Court on same-sex marriage. In various states there have been laws passed to protect the religious freedom of people. Where are you going to do that in Ohio?
Well, I think we need to take a deep breath. Look, I believe in traditional marriage, but the Supreme Court has ruled, and it's the law of the land, and we'll abide by it. And I think everybody needs to take a deep breath to see how this evolves. But I know this, religious institutions, religious entities, like the Catholic Church, they need to be honored as well. And I think there's an ability to strike a balance. Look, as job as governor, you learn to strike a balance. Sometimes you get into an argument, you get in a fight, and that's okay. But overall, what you want to do as a public official and as a leader is you want to kind of look for solutions where you can create more win-wins. And let's see how this thing develops. Everybody take a deep breath at this point.
Do you think that this ruling, though, some conservatives have said it's a real threat to the culture in America? Do you see it that way?
Look, I've said what I said about my view on it, but I think there's so many other things now that we have to focus on. It's going to be job growth, defeating poverty, healing the division between races, coming up with an immigration solution that's going to be fair and is going to help people, rebuilding our national defense. That's where the energy ought to be focused on the things that we know are vital to strengthen our country, John. I'm trying to avoid your question, but frankly, my head is now moving in the direction of what we can do to solve problems here together.
You're trying to avoid the question, which sounds like you're already a presidential candidate. When are you going to announce?
Well, first of all, I'm not avoiding it. You know, I do believe in traditional marriage, but the court has ruled, and it's time to move on. I'd be clear about that. In terms of announcing, we're getting awfully close to being able to make a decision. And, you know, look, I just want to do it if I think I have a path to win. People say I have low poll numbers, and, you know, I do, and I'll tell you why. Because I came into this office to take care of our beloved Ohio. I didn't travel outside the state. I didn't go out and politic. What I wanted to do was fix Ohio. So we went from $8 billion in the hole to a $2 billion surplus to a balanced budget to the largest tax cuts in the country and growing 360,000 jobs with everyone having a chance. Now I can go out and tell my story, and hopefully the polls will rise. We'll see. Do my best. That's all I can do, John.
That's right. That's all any of us can do. Governor, we appreciate your time. We'll look forward to talking to you when you're a candidate.